Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Trevy Trev, your host. I'm not gonna say with the most; that might be a little inappropriate, but it's your boy Trevy Trev, the Truth Be Told Hosea 46 podcast. Listen, I got a wonderful guest coming on. This man, his brother, is degreed up. Trust me, you don't want to miss this episode because we're going to be talking about the whistleblowers, Congress, a bunch of flying saucers or something flying in the air, and what should Christians do? How should Christians make sense of this? We'll be right back right after this. All right, and we back. Listen, let me. I guess I had to start off apologizing to you all. So just briefly, so you all knew I told you my birthday was. If you listened to the last episode that we recorded with Dr. Margot Reese on concerning translations. That was my birthday, so July 28th. Thank God for another year, and I guess I'm healthy, but at the same time, I caught COVID, this new variant. Didn't know it was COVID at the time. And that's where I'm at in Virginia, we had that heat wave that came up from southwest part of the U.S. And so I guess it brought COVID with it. I'm no medical expert, but I ended up getting sick from that. My wife got sick, my daughters got sick, my father-in-law, my wife's grandmother, a couple of her aunts, my nephew, my mom felt a little bit ill. So yes, please be mindful that, stuff is still flying. So whatever you got to do to protect yourself. But during that time period while I had off a few days. And so we were planning on recording 5 episodes, but those 5 episodes had to be rescheduled because I was in no shape to actually interview and record. But nonetheless, we're going to get them recorded and back out to you. So I do apologize. I know I owe you guys a couple episodes. If it's gone viral, please forgive me. That was blaming on COVID, this new variant that they have out, EG5 or whatever it's called. Eris, I think it's probably pronounced. We had Dr. J. Stephen Miller, who was scheduled to come on. We had to reschedule him. Dr. Reese was going to come back. We were going to talk about some stuff, her missional work in Liberia. But more so about because what she does over there is a school for girls. It's a lot of sex trafficking going on, a lot of raping. And she asked the question of, when she went over there, she's telling me, so she asked the question of, what's going on? Why all these girls getting raped and, young age? And they said it's demonic. And she said, no, for real. They said, no, for real. And they were telling her these very interesting stories. So she was going to come back on. I think World Missions Day is in October, if I'm not mistaken. So I wanted to kind of air that out. But anyways, you definitely need to be prayed up doing evangelistic work and missional work. So we had that. A couple other episodes we had down the pipeline, but they had to get rescheduled. But anyways, I got a very special guest on today. Some of you may have heard of him, some of you may not. I will allow him to introduce himself. He is a theologian. He's a scholar. He teaches in a very well-known seminary here in the States. And he also has some degrees in dealing with military, but I will allow him the space and opportunity to explain that. Dr. Brian Huffling, welcome to Truth Be Told Hosea 46 podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Happy birthday, and I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. It's still that long-term type of COVID stuff because it's still kind of lingering. I'm just now back to drinking coffee. So, coffee had a weird taste. That stuff really jacks you up. A lot of stuff mess you up, but I'm a big coffee drinker, love coffee. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I teach for Southern Evangelical Seminary and Bible College. I'm the director of the PhD program. I teach philosophy. I've historically taught apologetics and different stuff in the Bible.
Okay.
I just started my own podcast and YouTube channel. It's called Classical Theology with Dr. Brian Huffling. I got into the UFO stuff. I'm an Air Force chaplain. I got into that with a degree I'm doing for every rank has to have a kind of a school of study. You get the colonel, and so I did my I basically call it a thesis on UFOs and national security. Not surprised they let me do that, but they did, because it's one of my interests and kind of hobbies in looking at UFO, ufology, that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's me. I also teach for Apologia, which is a service for homeschoolers, philosophy and stuff like that for them.
Gotcha. Do you do some work with Dr. Hugh Ross's network?
That's right. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I'm a visiting scholar with Reasons to Believe. They do a lot of scientific apologetics and work in various sciences.
Right.
And yes, I just went to Reasons to Believe this is August, 2 months ago, almost, for a visiting scholar time out there in California. Great organization. Yeah.
I was actually supposed to record, and if you follow us on social media, you saw we posted to record with Dr. Hugh Ross, but we had to reschedule that, which is fine. It was either going to be him or Dr. Zerwink, if I think that's how I pronounce his name right. Both astrophysicists are going to answer the question of, does the universe support other life? We're going to go down that path, because I know Dr. Zerwink just released a book on that, dealing with, are we alone in the universe? So I think I find that pretty interesting to see that, you have these credible men and women who are, scholars and scientists who will say, and some of them not even Christian, will say, hey, look, we're alone. I'm sorry to say it, but we're alone.
Right.
So, but anyways, I saw you on Melissa's YouTube.
Yep, she's one of my students.
Yes, I saw that, and I sat there and I was like, man, if y'all went 4 or 5 hours on that, I would have listened to all 4 or 5 hours straight, because it was good.
It was fun. You had a good time with that. It was a little bit longer myself. Maybe we'll do it again, but yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and if you could let her know that a whole lot of people I know we kind of we're not as well known, but let her know that was one of my favorites of hers. So really enjoyed it. And I jumped to your channel. I started going through all of your stuff on UFOs and demon, that connection, because I think now the church in some ways is going to have to start discussing this.
You're right.
Because it's going to start messing. You're going to have somebody that comes to you and say, I don't know if they may be just, following along with the crowd, air quotes, and say, Pastor such and such, something was in my room last night. I think it was an alien. Or I saw something move in the sky, and it just, it looked like those sketch pads where you twist the knobs, and just, so I think it's an opportunity to discuss these, to discuss the, how supernatural our Bible is without going too far down the rabbit hole and getting off track, if you know. But this is why I wanted to have you on, because you have a great balance. Where you're teaching at and your background. I think that's a wonderful opportunity for us to listen, especially since and I wanted to touch on that with the whistleblowers, and that daggone COVID, when it was hot, but it still is making its round, because now you had NASA that came out, denied their claims. I think you had one of the top generals on the staff, I don't know the proper name, that are denying their claims. So now you have this kind of back and forth of, who and what to believe. So I tell you what, let me start off and play a clip. If you haven't heard, and actually I listened to, I was at work one day. It was a truck day, so I was able to just put my headphones on and just listen to it. Excuse me, but it's like 2 hours worth of hearing, and I listened through the whole thing. I just wanted to, we're not going to listen to all 2 hours. I don't have that type of time, and Dr. Huffling probably doesn't have that type of time either. But I wanted to point out or get a couple clips and hear what Dr. Huffling said. I think the most prominent, let me start right here. AOC asked a very, to me, it was a good question. Let me play hers first. Do I want to play it? Yeah, we'll play hers first, and we'll start there. So listen to what she says.
Record. If you were me, where would you look? Titles, programs, departments, regions, if you could just name anything. And I put that as an open question to the three of you.
I'd be happy to give you that in a closed environment. I can tell you specifically.
Thank you. Commander Fravor?
And I would say, and I've told people that you have to know where to look. They're not going to divulge it to you because of the classification levels. But if you know where to look and who to talk to, which is exactly what Mr. Grush can point you, then you have them.
Okay. Mr. Graves?
I was an operator, so I was depending on folks like Mr. Grush to do that homework.
Okay. Thank you very much. I yield back to the chair.
All right, so Dr. Huffling, where does somebody start on this? I mean, you can go down the History Channel path of Ancient Aliens, or if you had a student come to you, or just a Christian, and say, Dr. Huffling, I'm really struggling with this thing. I'm about an inch away from just saying, you know what, I'm done with Christianity because it's just shaking me. Where do you start?
Yeah.
I think that's a good question that she asked is, where do you look at? Where do you start?
That is a good question. And there, interestingly, have been people who said that my faith is being shaken by this. In fact, if you watch the History Channel, if you watch the show Unidentified by Laura Elizondo, and Fravor's on there, Graves is on there from that clip you just played. There's someone there who says, this was a real faith shaker when I saw this thing in the sky. I would point out that even if there were aliens, that doesn't disprove Christianity, because there still has to be a cause to these beings. Adding more finite creatures doesn't do away with the need for an ultimate necessary cause.
Right. Like
people try to use the multiverse theory. You mentioned the universe and all that. So adding more universes doesn't do away with the need for a cause. It doesn't do away with the evidence for the resurrection in the first century. If you're looking for a specific source, I like the book. It's kind of what got me into it. It's called Lights in the Sky and Little Green Men by Hugh Ross.
Right.
It's a great book. It's got a kind of a little bit of the history behind it, astrophysicist view of it, looks at the cultic view of it. But I would say if somebody's really interested in diving into the UFO stuff, like I've been doing for the last few years, you have to, first of all, you got to be careful with who you read, because this is one of those areas where if you don't know what you're doing, you're already wrong.
Oh yeah.
It's just dangerous. There's people out there who all kind of weird conspiracy theories. So it's like anything else. You've got to start with the good sources. So when students come in and say, well, I don't know where to start. Okay, well, find somebody who's an authority on it, and then see who he's citing and who they're citing. And so people that I would start with, and who I did start with, other than Hugh Ross, who's a Christian, Ron Rhodes is good. But non-Christian guys like Jacques Vallée, he's not going to hold our position, but he's like you. He's not a Christian, but he doesn't think aliens exist. John Keel, who is a paranormal investigator, saying a lot of the same things that we are. And J. Allen Hynek, who was the chief astronomer for the Air Force's investigation back in the 50s and 60s.
He was in with Project Blue Book, wasn't it?
Yes, he was part of. Actually, so was Vallée, but okay. Ross was the main. Not Ross. J. Allen Hynek was the main scientist behind Project Blue Book, the one that the Air Force leaned on for the most.
Right.
And he came out and he changed. He had his views changed completely. 180 degrees changed. He was a skeptic to begin with, and he changed his views. Yeah, there's something there, but he didn't think they were aliens. He didn't think they were physical, from what I can tell from his writings.
Okay.
He and Vallée disagree on that. But yeah, and actually you brought up a good point. It would be good for people to be able to go to their churches and pastors. The problem is this has a stigma associated with it. I'm not sure that's part of the deception by the dark forces of evil are behind some of this, at least. But people laugh it off because it doesn't seem like it's something to be taken seriously.
Right.
But the issue is, and this is one of the things that really got me interested in this, is that there are so many people having experiences, whether it be of some kind of UFO experience or a close encounter experience. So we can't just write it all off.
Right.
I think there's a lot of it that's explainable, a lot of it's hoaxes, whatever, but there's a lot of it also that is true. And if you look at and this is where you got to go, you got to look at the whole set of data. We can't just take a slice of data and try to explain everything with that one little slice. You got to say, here's the facts, X, Y, and Z. What explains it? Interestingly, aliens don't explain it, as
Right.
Valley says, and he's one of the most informed and leading ufologists we've ever had.
Oh yeah.
Says the alien hypothesis isn't weird enough.
Mm-hmm.
And John Keel says the same thing. In order to really understand the data and to make sense of it, you've got to have something that's going to explain the paranormal aspect of it. I just read a book. One of my students threw it at me, not literally, but told me to read it. I want to throw it at me. It's called Skinwalkers at the Pentagon.
You know what? I started to. That's in my Amazon cart because of you on one of. Yeah.
Yeah, get that.
I think you're interviewing I forgot his name about Sasquatch.
Yeah, my Doug.
Right.
My
Yeah.
Potter,
I'm gonna have to. Yep. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to order that. Yeah. I'm gonna have to
From
get
the
that.
very earliest days of Blue Book, and I could reach behind me and grab the bibliography. They were saying, the people who were investigating this, again, non-Christians, just looking at all the evidence,
Mhm.
that the phenomena is very similar to occultic kind of paranormal poltergeist activity, which is weird for an Air Force investigation to come out saying. And that's back in the, I think it was 60s when that bibliography came out.
Mhm.
They're saying the same thing in 2021 in Skinwalkers at the Pentagon.
Mhm.
And this book is so interesting because they are not Christians.
Right.
And they're saying there is some kind of weird poltergeist, paranormal stuff going on, and aliens just really don't explain that.
Right.
And so we have to help people understand there is really something there, because to deny it is dangerous, because you don't want to, give people the wrong impression about there's not really a snake over there, so don't worry about reaching your hand in. Well, what if there is? You can get bitten.
Exactly.
You want people to be aware of the reality of the situation. In fact, even people like John Keel, who again not Christians, says you really want to be careful not to dabble in this stuff. He says don't let young people do it. It preys on the gullible, the impressionable, the neurotic. This is people can be, and I can see why they can be very infatuated and obsessed with it. But the first thing is you have to be aware of it. And so if people are coming to you or me or the pastor or whatever, and they say, well, where do you start? Well, you got to start with the facts. Okay, what's going on? What can explain it? What doesn't explain it?
Yeah, that's another book. I think I read this right as soon as I finished seminary. I finished with at Liberty with my MDiv in apologetics.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, and so I'll be honest. This whole UFO stuff, alien stuff, it bothered me since I was a child. It was a show that came on. It was on Fox. That's how I recently found it again on YouTube. It's a very old footage. It was a family in the house, and this UFO crashed, and these aliens came in and took them out of the house. I forget the name of the family, but you can find it on YouTube. But that thing, I never forget, when I was a little boy, it came on Fox, and I was so scared. My mom had to send me and my brothers. You couldn't pause TV at the time. We had old floor model TV that was super heavy on a swivel. But it has always bothered me. And I would put it in like a compartment to say, oh, I ain't going to deal with that. Let's just focus on here. But it's a funny thing. I told Joe Jordan this when I first recorded, when I said, well, we got the devil and he's much worse. He's much badder than what aliens are.
Right.
And then I asked one of my professors in seminary, Dr. Ronnie Campbell, I said, should we now start, or should Christians start dealing with this, theologians, seminaries? And he's talking about, well, C.S. Lewis did a little something on that.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And then he started to point me to scholars who were dealing with this. The late Dr. Michael Heiser did a lot on that.
Yep.
And started pointing. So when you're talking about the proper research, I'm just shaking my head like, yeah, because this stuff can lead you down. If you don't know what you're doing, it can lead you down the wrong path.
It just takes one wrong turn and you're
right.
off track.
And you're going to follow after your Stephen Greer's, and he's going to teach you how to channel these things. And he recently said in an interview, he was saying, yeah, sometimes we might get an angel pop up when we do these things, or we might get a bad entity pop up. Like, dude, you still think these are some men from far off, or some beings from far off.
That's the same kind of thing we see with Whitley Strieber, who had the famous incident back in the 80s. So, well, it seemed malevolent, but we're going to keep going after it. Like, we don't even know what it is. Well, that's kind of dangerous.
Right.
It's interesting that they would, want to keep tracking these things. when they don't really know what they are, but they seem to be malevolent in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah. So I think to the audience, I mean, just and don't cherry pick. I think, and I keep iterating, y'all don't cherry pick. As just don't go after the Christian scholar. Go after which I have him here, Jacques Vallée. I got a couple of his books sitting over here. Read these men and women who have no backing religiously. They're not trying to sway you. They don't particularly have a belief. Maybe they don't have. I don't want to assume. But the religious professor Diana I forget her name. She teaches at UNC Chapel Hill Religious Studies. I think it's Pulowski. I had to pull her up, but she has a couple books out. But she even says that studying these things, and she has a few contacts with in the federal government. They were saying this stuff, people, you have to channel these things through occult practices.
Yep.
And that's the danger. And the hearing they had with the two men from, I think they were from the Department of Defense late last year, the hearing.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. They went behind, they said, well, we'll save these questions for, basically behind closed doors, not the public. And I was like, well, I wonder if they might have asked them, are these things inherently demonic? Because even in that congressional hearing recently, it kind of got into, I think it was Grush, the main speaker, the main guy, whistleblower. He said, well, that's something reserved to scientists. These things may be interdimensional. And it just kind of shifted real quick.
He did say that. That was an interesting comment. Yep.
Yeah, it was. And I was like, man, they don't want to answer. But are you familiar with Nick Redfern?
Yes, I read one of his book, Final Events.
Yeah. I was going to talk. Man, I read that in 2 days.
It was a fascinating. It's hard to decipher exactly what, because he's even getting it secondhand.
Right.
So it's hard to decipher. I'm not saying he's wrong, but it's interesting, but hard to decipher what exactly is true. And it's the whole thing in ufology is, well, what's true and what's not true.
Right.
But as you know, Redfern was saying, I don't want to take it out of your mouth what you were
No, you good.
He was just saying, the military knows it's malevolent. They're using these occultic, parapsychological ways of trying to attach onto this, and they're using it. And it's kind of a known fact that, they have done this before. Remote viewing and all this kind of stuff, astral projection, trying to utilize this. So the government's a believer in paranormal activity. That's just a hard, cold fact.
Yeah, absolutely. And he even said too, when he was talking about the Collins elite, if that, I understand the theory behind them, but they even said, like, if he said in his book that if Congress found out that they were, a sector of the federal government was investigating demons, they'll shut it down.
Yeah,
because they turned from the theory of something might be on these planets, whatever, maybe part of the universe. And then they started interviewing people and they was like, nah, these things are demonic.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So, okay. So if you want to, look into this, what AOC said, where would I look at? Do proper research. I mean, History Channel, they're going to give you all sorts of mumbo jumbo. I mean, I've got a atheist scholar here. I think he's deceased, but he even tears apart, the ancient astronaut theory. Yeah. So, that's utter garbage. But
there is some interesting stuff on the History Channel. There's the unidentified show, and I don't agree with every little thing but a lot of it is just kind of, here's what happened.
Right.
And it's the military guys again.
Yeah.
On there, Fravors on there, Graves is on there, Chris Mellon, people on there, and there's different views as to how reliable they are and everything. But it gives you kind of at least the real story of what's coming out of the government, Department of Defense.
Right.
Doors as to what's so it's good. Ancient Aliens, I haven't watched a whole lot of that. Skinwalkers, the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, watching that now. It's interesting. It does kind of follow up on what the government did investigate that, and it's well known in that milieu. And they're the same thing. They're trying to figure out. It seems very, very paranormal.
Right. Yeah. I think I got a Skinwalkers on Netflix too. I started it and then I stopped it.
Yeah, it's a well-known thing now.
Okay. Cool. All right. So, y'all know what to do here, and you guys know I list sources, and then on top of that, I'll list Dr. Huffling's channel down below because he's very credible and very knowledgeable on the subject. So go to his channel and do what I do and just sit there and chew up the videos. All right. So now, so we got research. So let's move in before I get to the actual, I guess, the juicy part. How do we make sense of things flying? I mean, somebody said, yeah, I mean, I can see how they're demonic, but what about these crafts? I mean, they're flying at, unsurmountable rates of speed. They're doing these maneuvers. Even, these experienced pilots, U.S. military pilots. I mean, you even have in other countries reporting, Russia, and I think China reported some incident all over, major military saying these things are making some major moves. How do we say that, how do we interpret that those are demonic? And then I'm gonna ask you a question about some theology towards the end concerning that, if they are demonic. But how do you make sense of that?
So you look at the data, and what's interesting is, Hynek, again, was one of the main researchers for the Air Force on this, and he made a statement in one of his books. His book is one of them is called The UFO Experience. If you're wanting to know about the UFOs, that's a great one to read. The report, what's it called? By Edward Ruppelt, Report on Unidentified Flying Objects. He actually coined the term UFO. He was a military officer running Blue Book.
Okay.
That's for the historical part. That's good. You got to really just know the facts before we can start making these theories. And so what's interesting is, after Hynek started investigating these things, first he said, we don't study UFOs.
Right.
We study UFO reports. And so, because we'd have no UFOs to study from, Grush notwithstanding, we don't have anything that people are just going out to and doing empirical research on. So you have to say, okay, here's the phenomenon. You got this thing that you just said can go thousands of miles an hour and can perform right angle turns, 180-degree turns. They can go through air, space, and water. They sometimes hit radar, sometimes they don't. They can just vanish or reappear out of thin air. They can change their shape. They change their color. And those kind of things, as far as we understand physics, are not possible.
Right.
And that has led people like Hynek to say these things are at root not physical entities. They are, whatever they are causing physical effects like poltergeist phenomena. So there's non-material psychic type energies that can manifest physical effects. Well, we see that with angels in the Bible, for example.
Right. Absolutely.
Not everyone agrees with that. So Valet, for example, one of his peers, did not think that they were immaterial, but he didn't think that they were coming from outer space. He thought they were interdimensional and can somehow go through and manipulate space-time dimensions. That was the only way you can explain these things just kind of coming out of nowhere and changing shape and changing, all this kind of stuff.
Right.
So when you take that kind of information and you couple it with this UFO landed, and all of a sudden I'm getting these entities claiming that Jesus is not, having these different interactions with not just abductees but contactees, and the main theme of all this is Jesus is not really God. That's one of the main, one of the main narratives that they're trying to pass over on us. And when they stop and desist in the name of Jesus, as Joe Jordan says to us, that happens, and he's verified with other MUFON people, Mutual UFO Network people, that it doesn't seem like what Commander Fravor and Ryan Graves and these people are saying. These things don't seem to be really physical objects.
Right.
If we just had the UFO phenomena, would that give us demons? Probably not. But if we have the whole shebang, the whole bag of data, the UFOs, they're connected to these close encounters, which is connected to this paranormal, demonic, very clearly anti-Christian, not just anti-religious, but anti-Christian message. It's consistent, no pun intended, but we're not deducing this from the data. We're not inducing it, we're abducing it. So we're using abductive reasoning. I know this is, there's not abduction where people are getting sucked into a UFO, but abduction in the sense of you're reasoning to the best explanation. That's all we have to do here. That's all we can do.
Right.
So you take the UFO phenomena, the actual craft and all that, and you put it in the whole bag of data, and there's a lot of problems with the alien theory. There's a lot of problems with the interdimensional theory. There's problems with this and that. But the demonic theory makes sense and it explains most of the data better than the other theories do.
Yeah.
Is that all answering your question? It's a hard question.
Yeah. I mean, I was, I think it was maybe about 4 years ago. I remember maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I was reading an article, and they were talking about the future of air warfare.
Yep.
And they were talking about it's going to be moving away from humans behind the controllers, more so robots. I guess because this is just, right, you know, because if you need to launch an attack quick, you know, a robot that can withstand those type of speeds could get you from point A to Z in less time versus you have a human there. If you go, I don't know, maybe 5 miles above what is the limit, it would probably kill them.
Yeah, and we have, you know, unmanned aerial vehicles now.
Right, you're seeing that.
Yep. Driven from space too, from orbit.
Yeah,
we have a presence all the time around.
Yeah, I think too. Nazi Germany was working on trying to reverse engineer, I think it was nuclear power to hover their designs of their crafts. And I'm like, well, man, I mean, you know, I think if you can kind of look up some patents on some of these objects, you'll see that they may be in production with some country, or maybe whoever produces these type of weaponry or aircraft for militaries across the world. The U.S., you know, I mean, for crying out loud, if you take, what is it, the stealth fighter, a B-52 bomber now, and you put that back in 1920, of course it's going to look like a UFO.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, I think that I read a good book this summer, Satan and a Problem of Evil by Dr. Arthur T. Wright, and he was talking about, you know, demons using stuff as well, Satan using these opportunities. And I'm saying, well, you know, maybe it's the fear factor of I'm not used to seeing this type of object. And Satan is, you know, the demonic is preying on that fear. Well, we can really use this to our advantage. Going back to Nick Redfern, and if it is plausible what he said, because I think it was in him, or either maybe it may have been Dr. Ray Bosch, who I read too. I read some of his stuff frequently. But there was a story of a guy that actually had a near-death experience or out of body. He went to hell, and he said he saw this cliff where people were just walking and just jumping off, but he said it was like they were being controlled, and it was these UFOs flying above their heads and like controlling them or something. And then when he came to, I guess he gave his life to this person that gave his life to the Lord. And he said he started having paranormal events in his house. And it's been like that. It's been Dr. Bosch was on academia.com. If you have a subscription, you can read some of his stuff from 14 Research. And he was talking about a story where a lady kept having incidences with the Men in Black, if you would, and paranormal stuff, a lot of that. But it has been like that with people in the past that I don't know if they're Christian. I don't know if we classify them, but they may have been doing some work. I think it's a clip on the History Channel I'll play here shortly where it has turned in paranormal. I'm like, you got something floating in your room that's black telling you to leave it alone. We got humans. I'm like, what do you think?
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, I think, I don't know. I mean, I'm, no expert on this. I think that if it is something military, you know, maybe this is an opportunity for Satan and the demons to actually use that to make people fear. That's just a thought going through my mind. And on the second half, I mean, if you just read ancient literature on the subject of demonology, you'll see where they had spirits in waters that were in the sky. I mean, at certain cultures in pre-Islamic era, I mean, they wouldn't even let men go outside at night because the demon Lilith would prey on men. They wouldn't even whistle because they thought that it would attract demons. Edward Langton in his book on demonology talks about I think it's 7 spirits or the 4 spirits, but it was air, water, and he's talking about these ancient beliefs where they had these prevalent views of these spirits able to fly. I mean, you go anywhere. I mean, in Africa, certain Afro-Caribbean countries with mermaids.
Mm-hmm.
Even in Greco-Roman times, I think in the book of Enoch, first Enoch, they talk about the women that slept with the sons of God, they were turned into sirens. So, but anyways, that's where I'm at right now with that, is that it's a possibility that with me, I think that they could be using something that maybe the military might have other plans for, but because we're not used to seeing these type of movements with certain aircraft, it just kind of catches us off guard, fright almost.
Yeah, some of that could be possible. And there have been misidentifications of military craft, like the F-117, for example. These are, triangular type aircraft that people are used to seeing. I don't think we had that kind of technology back in the 30s and 40s and 50s that people are claiming to have had these weird UFO experiences with. Certainly there's some misidentifications. Area 51, I think, is probably the YouTube projects, like also CIA. It might explain some things. It's not going to explain everything. It's certainly not all around the world. This is all over the world, as you already said. And it ties into, and Valet does a great job with this. So does John Keel, showing that what people are saying about UFOs ties into their own religious folklore. Right. And the phenomena changes somewhat with the culture and the times. Which is another hallmark of, well, if it's going to be explained, it's not going to be explained with aliens, because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And you said something too that was cool, was they always attack the Christian worldview or Judeo-Christian worldview. And it's been several people, I know Joe Jordan's one of them, that pointed out they never really say anything about any other religion. And then it
is directly at the Christian religion.
Exactly. And that caught when I started to look into this, it was like ding. And then it was also Stephen Bancar's, he was talking about a lot of people in New Age that would kind of astral project and see these beings, I guess the grays and whatever other type, yellow, green, purple, whatever they are. And they would attack that same worldview. Oh, there's no God, there's no Jesus, we're God, and then it started getting to the point where they said they kind of felt violated almost, and then they would sing a hymn, prayer, or call on the name of Jesus, and it would stop. And these people were not Christians at the time when this was happening. So I think that's wonderful evidence, in my opinion.
It really is. It shows it doesn't make sense on an alien view. It does make sense on our view. Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on here. So in the congressional hearing, I'm pretty sure, if you haven't heard it, I mean, if you have the time, sit down 2 hours, or if you got something going on, maybe road trip, listen to it, because I'm only gonna play pieces and clips. Mr. Burleson, he's from the Show Me State. He says, I'm from the Show Me State, which is Missouri. So apparently Satan was from that state as well when he asked Jesus, if you are the Son of God, you need to show me. But he asked some great questions here, and then we'll get Dr. Huffling to chime in. Take a listen.
Has been harmful activity or aggressive activity. Has any of the activity been aggressive, been hostile in your reports?
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured, and the activity, and I got
by UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both.
Okay, so there has been activity by alien or non-human technology and or beings that has caused harm to humans.
I can't get into the specifics in an open environment, but at least the activity that I personally witnessed, and I have to be very careful here, because they tell you never to acknowledge tradecraft, right? So what I personally witnessed, myself and my wife, was very disturbing.
All right, so Mr. Grush is talking about physical harm. And I was thinking, okay, so what happened? They crashed, or what do you do with people when you have people that would here probably identify well. It was like, well, something's in my room and I got a mark on me. They probe me. How do you walk through that? How do you approach this?
So the physical and even psychological harm is a typical characteristic of the phenomenon. It's not new. This is not something that just happened. If you go back into the Blue Book area and before then, and you mentioned demonic stuff in the Middle Ages, that it happened then as well. The reports of that happened.
Right.
So whether it's radiation damage, we have people who in the military who have had radiation damage from what they claim to be craft around them. The Reynolds Forest incident of 1980, which is my favorite case. They had radiation, and this was a really interesting case, but they claim to have all kind of physical problems. The guy at Skinwalker Ranch had radiation, had gamma radiation when some of the stuff would happen. There have been people who have reportedly been abducted, like Travis Walton, 1975, who said he had all kind of physical effects from this. It's not. I don't want to say it's unusual, but it's kind of one of the characteristics of the phenomena that if you get really into these close encounter events, some kind of harm or even death actually has happened. Death is not one of the typical ones, but it has happened.
Okay.
It can be heart problems. It can be burns. It can be cancer. It can be all sorts of things. So it's not unusual. I just kind of understand where Grush is coming from when he can't say things. It was kind of insulting and just like, well, if you just read the literature, this is not new. It's like you're not going to be exploding. maybe it's maps, perhaps, but it's kind of annoying that he can't say anything besides, I can't say this in an open environment. This is not new. So somebody who's saying they have some kind of experience in the bedroom or whatever, and they had these marks. A couple things. One, we don't want to downplay their experience if they think they have some real objective thing going on. But it is, we just got to be careful.
Right.
So if it says I got this mark on me, okay, we can accept that. We can figure out what happened in your experience, what led up to it. Do you have any doors open up in your life to the occult or anything, maybe your parents or anything else? And that's not always the case. Right. Sometimes it is. But I would just say if they're coming, they want help. So I would tell them what I think it is and tell them what they need to do. They need to shut any doors that they can. That's opening that up. And don't play with Ouija boards. Don't go to psychics. Don't be playing with the occult or New Age type stuff. That's an open door to this kind of thing. Trying to seek it out even can be an open door to it. But I would say that you may have had a real experience, but what it looks like, given all the earmarks, is more of a spiritual, malevolent experience. So what you should do is make sure that you're giving your life over to Christ, you're praying, you're reading the Word, you're in community in fellowship with other believers, and that you approach this from a spiritual point of view.
Right.
Am I getting at the kind of answer?
Yeah. That's the one, being careful what you watch and stuff. I mean, like we talked about earlier, is going down this rabbit trail. You got to be careful with who you listen to and getting information from, because I mean, like with Stephen Greer, he has Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind or something like that. You open your mind up.
Yeah, he is definitely a very new age, very much. If you watch that documentary, that was hard. I had to stop watching it. It was not a good documentary. I mean, it was just so thick in the Eastern mentality. But people like him, not to pick on him, but this is an example. Yeah, if you pick the wrong person, you're gonna go down that wrong path, which could lead to problems.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not something people laugh this off a lot of times, but it really is not something. It's interesting because Christians will take demonic things seriously, and then they'll take things like this not seriously and not realize this is one of the connected roads.
Yeah. There was I interviewed, it was JoJo and JoJo. So it was the first one I interviewed, and it was on my YouTube page, and a lady commented underneath and said, do you think anything, or do you think this UFO alien phenomenon has anything to do with demons and possession? And I said, absolutely yes. When you really look at it, and again, when you talk about the paranormal events that people that say that they have experienced, maybe flying, UAP or ETI, which is extraterrestrial intelligence, or an alien. There's some type of paranormal event, lights flickering off, door slamming shut, even figures appearing in their room.
It gets real weird real fast.
It very, very fast. It does very fast. And I never saw one. I mean, if I did, I'd probably pass it off as though I try to work through that. As well, that can be some type of astronomical event, astrological, event. It can be, I mean, for crying out loud, I live near 2 airports. One is literally a minute from my house. And so where I'm at in Virginia, I think it's funny. They did a map of the US of states that would survive an alien attack if there was ever one. Not there would be. Virginia, where I'm at, was number 1 for surviving, and it's probably because all of the military bases. That's
I can see that.
I mean, where I'm at in the Richmond area, I mean, good God, I mean, it's military all over the place.
Yeah,
and you go, 2 hours east, you got Norfolk, and then 2 hours north, you have DC and Langley and all that, and then I mean, we got a couple Marine bases here. I mean, it's all over. Big Department of Defense. I probably shouldn't be saying all this, but anyway.
that's the best public knowledge. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, so I guess I'm fine. I guess I'm good. But anyways,
Don't leave town.
Right, don't leave town. But I mean, and that's why I started linking this together. Like, something ain't right, and that ain't right. I know I shouldn't say that, but anyway, that what is not right is there's too much overlap. I mean, I even saw people where they were saying it smelled like sulfur. And I was like, well, people that have demonic infestation stuff that I read about said it smelled like sulfur. It smelled like trash.
Yeah.
Temperature changes. I mean, it was like, okay, either these people are possessed by aliens or they're possessed by, or these occurrences are actually demonic in nature. Let me show this clip to you. You might have seen it on History Channel. I'll play the clip if I can find it. Here we go. Take a look. Listen.
Bridgeport, Connecticut, 1953. Albert K. Bender, the nation's top UFO investigator, receives a threatening visit that will bring his research to an abrupt and premature halt.
He suddenly ended the International Flying Saucer Bureau, and people wondered why. And what happened was that he came home one night, went into his bedroom, and suddenly these 3 dark, shadowy figures materialized through his wall into his bedroom. They were wearing the hats and the overcoats.
The visitors Albert Bender encountered matched descriptions of what is today known as the Hat Man, but he called them by another name, the Men in Black. While the Men in Black are often portrayed in pop culture as government agents, many who claim to have encountered them believe they are something other than human.
All right, so that's where I'm at right there is, well, I mean, you have these, and that was reported, that phenomenon of the man in black with the hat, not actually MIB, but this shadowy figure, that's in other cultures that really have nothing to do with the UFO phenomenon. And they report the same type of incident, is this threatening message and some type of paranormal activity, or if you would, preternatural activity. And that's why I was like, okay, there's a connection with this.
Yeah. The Men in Black phenomenon is very interesting. It is normally seen, I've always seen them as, basically CIA.
Right.
There is a show on the History Channel, if you go back to that, called Project Blue Book. It's the TV show. It's a historical kind of historical fiction. It's entertaining to watch if you want to learn about it and just kind of have see a fun show. It's a fun show. And the Men in Black in there are CIA, basically. Not basically, they are CIA. I've mentioned John Keel before. He was, if you've heard the Mothman before, Mothman
Right.
Prophecy.
Yeah. Oh, West
He
Virginia.
has, yeah. A lot
Mhm.
that is all
Point
intertwined
Pleasant.
together with
Yeah.
right, with the UFO stuff. He's written the most on Men in Black, at least that I've read about. And he reports that there's a lot of similarities with the cases, that they seem to have, for some reason, Asian features. They're just not quite right in their how they talk or walk, even their cars
Right.
they drive.
Yeah.
And he portrays them as basically paranormal, supernatural beings as well.
Mhm.
They just are part of the phenomena in one way or another.
Yeah. Dr. Bosch, either Bosch or Bosch. I heard both pronunciations, but I think it's Dr. Ray Bosch. An article he had recently I was reading talked about that. Was it was a girl, I guess she saw something, and then these men, and the same things that you described, they had these type of robotic features,
Yeah.
strange voices, but on the backflip, she would come home from work and her apartment be tore up, and she said she had these guys, these men in black, pull up on her at the supermarket and threatening her, and then turn around and they just gone like the wind. I mean, it was just a snap of finger, gone.
Yep.
And she said I meant to pick back up, finish reading it, but she said one night they came to her apartment and was, threatening her through the peephole, like they knew she was looking through the peephole, and this bright light appeared out of nowhere. She said it could be a car, but she said they turned almost like, those wind up dolls you would wind up in the back, and they would kind of robotic move.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. She said that's how they moved. But she also said what Dr. Bosch was reporting in this article, was she would kind of see these black shadow figures at night, just staring at her, and that's why I said, something is, like you said, it's a part of that. And what some folks I've read were saying that these things either are, the theories is they're investigating this phenomenon themselves, or like you said, they're a part of it.
Yeah, they're either part of it, and there could be instances where they are actually in some way investigators, government, or whatever. But the way that it's portrayed and described by people, and it's not unusual or not out of the norm, I guess, for this phenomena, is that there's something weird about them even.
Yeah. And then you go down, I think there's some the women in black, and you had the black-eyed children that are involved with this as well that people report. But, anyways,
The thing is the UFO, if you're in the UFO, if you're in some kind of a close encounter, not so much just the daylight discs or nocturnal lights where you've seen things in the sky. I've known several people who have seen the lights and seen discs and things. But if you're having the close encounter type in events, it's almost just normal to have other weird things happen too. Paranormal stuff, Men in Black stuff, poltergeist type things, Bigfoot even. It's not a one thing usually. Yeah.
It's all connected.
Even all connected.
Even that Bigfoot thing when there was it was an episode, it was way back. It happened in Alaska. Some people was on a boat, they saw Bigfoot, and then they saw a UFO above Bigfoot. And then there was people reporting having these massive headaches.
Headaches is a typical
with Bigfoot sightings. And I was like, man, I said something's not right. This is
for UFOs too.
Headache, right. Okay. I haven't heard that one. Okay.
Oh yeah. Headaches, all kind of stuff.
But
eye
too,
problems.
Yeah. And I want to say the two gentlemen that were the pilots, I don't know if it was them per se or other ones that may have came out that reported after these events that they saw, they had nightmares and then apocalyptic dreams.
That's also very common. Apocalyptic type dreams, or visions.
So, That's
I don't remember Graves and Fravor saying that.
It was somebody else. But I remember that they were saying like the pilots, maybe it was like involving that Tic Tac video or something, but they were saying they had nightmares and then apocalyptic dreams.
Yeah, again, that's not horribly unusual. Yeah,
right. And I guess with the psychology aspect of it, you see something like that, it might shake you to the point of like
Oh yeah, you see anything just out of the ordinary, you're going to be shaken by it.
Right. It might play into your dreams, but
nightmares and things too. Sure.
Right, but the apocalyptic part, that's what kind of was like, well, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
a typical vision, a typical message is that we're here to save you from yourselves, from blowing yourselves up with these nuclear. That's why people think that what's going on. The aliens have come post 1945 to help save us from another Nagasaki, Hiroshima, whatever, all these atomic bombs.
Yeah.
And if you look at the history, it just goes way beyond 1945.
Yeah. There was they actually had a AI produce I guess it was a movie to supposedly predict 2024 or whatever. And it was all these UFOs that pulled up. They looked exactly like pyramids, except more of in a diamond shape. So
yeah,
the two main players were the US and Russia. They wanted to make contact. So the US, I guess they kind of had a pact. The US went up first, then Russia came behind, shot them down. That's when nuclear war started. And then after everything was destroyed, the aliens shot something out. It's like this big speaker they shot out. And they said, we thought you were ready to make contact. But they basically sent back what NASA sent out with all of these voice messages into deep space or whatever. And they said, we thought you were ready for this type of consciousness and traveling with your mind, and there was their whole new age message that was attached to it. Not saying that's going to happen, but I just said, well, I mean, that's what you find with this UFO phenomenon.
Exactly. A lot
of new age stuff.
And becoming a higher consciousness.
Yeah. And two, I asked Joe Jordan with the first episode. I said, man, I ask you an honest question. I said, are aliens racist? Because you really don't find, and he said, you know what? He said it's a white people problem. But now you're starting to see this more in different cultures. You're seeing, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure you heard of Black Hebrew Israelites, but they have attached UFOs in their message. These are actually vehicles going to be used by God to destroy everybody that's a non-colored person. And then you have, for the longest time, you had the Nation of Islam that talked about the mothership coming back. Okay. It was shaped like a UFO. Wow. So, I mean, even now you have that new age type of, crystals and all of the other jazz has permeated beyond cultures. And even now you're starting to see what I'm starting to see, even as someone who is African-American, it is now more prevalent in African-American with younger people, or people saying, oh, we're not alone. There's other folks. And, look, even NASA has theologians from Harvard investigating this,
Yep.
So you're starting to see this phenomenon move cross-culturally.
This is one argument against this is a U.S. technology thing, because it's all over the world. It's in South America, it's in Africa, it's in Australia, it's in Asia, it's all over the world, and it really has been. Read books like another one of Allie's book, co-authored by Chris Aubeck, Wonders in the Sky. It's a chronicle of going back hundreds of years to this. And so it is interesting. I haven't heard the racist aspect of it. That's kind of interesting, but I know people in South America have that phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's not unusual.
Yeah, and then even the it was back in the 90s, I believe, that school in
is it Zimbabwe?
Zimbabwe. I was either gonna say Zimbabwe or Kenya or somewhere. It was
somewhere there, where the kids all saw.
Yeah, they saw that. Yeah. And it landed on the playground, and then they talked about the green. It was like it gave them a green earth message. Oh, you guys got to be stewards of the planet and take care of the green message, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But yeah. Hey, well, I tell you what, let's move on. This is gonna be my last clip. I was talking to Dr. Huffling about this. Some of y'all may have heard of this incident, but there's been something going on in Peru, because it's kind of, we're just following along, going from where to start, where to investigate. I tell you what, let's do that. Let me play that clip, and then I'm going to come behind that clip with, I think, probably one of the most important questions from that hearing. So we're going to play two of them back to back. So this has been going on in Peru about some villagers being harassed by flying aliens.
The alleged alien attacks began in July this year. An isolated indigenous community in rural Peru claims so. Villagers say they were being harassed by strange beings who even tried to kidnap a 15-year-old girl from the village. Locals say they saw armored aliens that looked like the Green Goblin. You know, one of the arch enemies of the superhero Spider-Man? These so-called aliens have long heads with yellowish eyes and they surf the wind. Sounds shady, but just as curious, especially because of the timing. This comes just weeks after the US congressional hearings about UFOs. Eventually, the news spread like wildfire, and it was time for authorities to get involved. The Peruvian Navy and police traveled to the village and began investigations, after which they concluded that the perpetrators weren't aliens, but members of illegal gold mining gangs. Want to know the full story? Watch Beyond Bazaar on the First Post YouTube channel.
You've stated that the government is in possession of potentially non-human spacecraft. Based on your experience and extensive conversations with experts, do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
Gotcha.
All right, Dr. Huffling. So you saw that one with, or heard that one with the Peruvian incident. Turned out to be some people playing around. And it was interesting. She said this happened after the hearings. And then you heard in the hearing, I think that was one of the most focal points between her and then the senator from Missouri. I think those, and I think I would say even AOC, because she does ask to me, she asks a really good question. Where do y'all start? Where do I look at? So with non-human biologics, what do you make sense of? Student came, you said, well, they said they have something that's not human. How do I handle that?
So what I tell people, and I said in one of my last videos on this very topic was, we can't jettison what we do know for what we don't know. We really have no evidence. I'm not trying to say Gross is lying or anything, but as of right now, from what I'm aware of, there is no evidence of crashed craft. There's no evidence of any kind of other biological entities. Until that is made public and available for people to actually investigate and study, all we have is his statement. Even if he were correct, I don't think that would disprove Christianity. Is he lying? I don't know. Is he believing what he's saying and just wrong? I don't know. He has not seen the biologics from his own testimony, and it's not clear whether he's claiming to have seen the craft. A little cryptic there. It seemed like he was kind of saying he had seen them. I don't think it's wise for people to start making theories about reality based on what someone has said without any kind of evidence. My only retort to that, if I were playing devil's advocate with myself, was, well, why would he lie to Congress?
Right.
Well, as you've mentioned, other people from organizations like the one he's talking about, ARROW, the Advanced Anomaly Research Organization, they have come out to Congress and saying he's just full of it. Nothing he's saying is true. They are just as much on the hook with Congress for perjury as he is, and they're just saying this is just no evidence whatsoever. So I think we should just suspend judgment with his claims until there's something to really have to judge. We can judge the phenomena that we do know and make theories about what we do know.
Right. Okay. All right. Last question. How would you counsel a student? If you were a pastor, parishioner, how do you? Matter of fact, since you're a chaplain, if you had someone come to you and say, I'm really struggling. I'm a Christian. I'm struggling with this. How I'm about to walk away. How do I make sense of this?
Yeah, I would ask them if it was a one-on-one. I would just ask them, what is your problem with it? Like, what is it about this that makes Christianity seem false? what it normally seems like it is for people is, well, we're not the center of God's creation. This disproves Christianity.
Right.
I would say, even if there was some kind of discovery tomorrow, NASA comes saying, we found aliens on whatever system.
Right.
That does not disprove Christianity. It doesn't disprove there needing to be a cause for the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't just magically remove all the evidence for the resurrection in the first century. We still have to explain the first century and Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And we would still need a cause, because these aliens would also be finite contingent beings that could not explain their own existence.
Right.
So we still need a cause. We still need a cause of all the physical being that there is.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't defeat the evidence for the resurrection. So
Right.
I would just tell a person it would raise questions. In fact, I'm speaking at a conference in October at a school in Canada on the question of the implications of extraterrestrial life on Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
It would raise a lot of questions. It wouldn't disprove anything right off the bat. There would be no disproving Christianity right off the bat. It would just raise questions like, how would they relate to sin? How would they relate to salvation?
Right.
I'd have to rethink something. Did Jesus die for them? Did our sins affect them? But the presence of other beings does not, on the face of it, disprove Christianity. I don't think adding any kind of finite being could disprove God, because I think God is a necessary being, because there's got to be a being that accounts for all of the contingent, changing material being that we experience in the universe. So adding more of that doesn't disprove God. I don't understand why people think that, well, there's more aliens, so God doesn't. It's like evolution. Well, if evolution is true, God can't exist. All evolution talks about is that things are changing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, you still need a cause for the things that are changing. And it also does not do away with the, I think, excellent case for the resurrection. So I would try to figure out, if it was one-on-one, what are your problems? Why are they problems? What do we know? And where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And I would just say we can't jettison what we do know, creator, resurrection, with what we don't know.
Right. Right. Awesome. Hey, look, this has been a good episode. That's our music. So we had to hook up Dr. Huffling with some well-known theme music, outro. But this has been a great episode. We'll let it kick in, because it's this show used to scare me too as well. We'll kick in a second. But there we go. The infamous whistle. What was it? Mulder and Scully. So if you're familiar with X-Files, that's our little outro music for today. Dr. Huffling, if people want to get in contact with you, how could they do so?
You can go to classicaltheology@gmail.com. You can reach me at on my website, brianhuffling.com, or classicaltheology.com. And I'm also on the YouTube channel. You can get me through there as well. My email is on my website at SES, and here to help you.
Absolutely. Now, what I'll do is list your YouTube channel on my underneath the description.
Thank you.
So if you guys want to go and check it, please, and I don't want to say please just go ahead and check his channel out. He has a lot on this subject. Let me cut that down for a little bit. He has a lot on this subject. If you're struggling with this topic, listen, go check it out. He has a lot of sources. I'm telling you, if I was a visual podcast, you would see how many books he has, but you will see that on his YouTube page. He is very well studied, very well knowledgeable on this. And then, so if you want to get in contact with, please feel free to do so. But look, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and downloading. First and foremost, I appreciate all your downloads. I have spoken with people from all over the U.S. who have just randomly messaged me, which is awesome. I appreciate that. Even on our YouTube channel, saying how blessed they have been. Just a few comments. So God knows I appreciate you all. And look, stay strong in the faith. Continue in the faith. Remember, was 2 Thessalonians 2:12. It's a strong delusion that is coming. And guess what? God has orchestrated this, but remain faithful, because this is nothing but something to get you off of your course. And just remember Philippians chapter 2, where it starts at verse 5 and ends at verse about 11. But at that name of Jesus, every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess that what? He is Christ, he is Lord. So if this phenomenon is happening to you, just shout the name of Jesus. Like when I grew up, those old mothers would say there's power in the name of Jesus. And trust me, they did not play. They did not play. But listen, God bless you. God keep you. I'm out of time. Please go and check out Dr. Brian Huffling's channel. The link is down below. God bless you. God keep you. And may heaven continue to smile upon you. We'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.